When the Caligula Effect was announced for the Vita nearly 3 years ago, I have to say I was rather ecstatic. The man behind the story was none other than Tadashi Satomi, the writer of Persona 1, the Persona 2 duology, and the digital Devil Saga games. I hold his writing skills in high regard, especially his work on Persona 2, so I was thrilled to see his modern take on a high school RPG. Unfortunately, the original version of Caligula was a game with a lot of great ideas, brought down by budget and system limitations. It had a phenomenal soundtrack and interesting story, but its lackluster presentation and abysmal frame rate left me immensely disappointed. However, there was definitely something that always kept me from outright hating it. I guess I'm not the only one who thought that, because Furyu decided to give the game a second chance in the form of the remake titled Caligula Effect Overdose. This version rebuilds the game from the ground up using Unreal Engine 4, introduces a new female protagonist, rebalances the combat, offers a new route that nearly doubles the length of the original game, gives the UI a fresh makeover, and adds new songs, art, party members, and endings. This is also the first time the game will receive a physical release in America, and the first time it's been ported to Switch and PC, in addition to the PS4 release that came out in Japan. The review code I was provided by Nissa was for the Switch version of the game, so I'll be going over my thoughts on both Overdose and the new port. The game starts out with a bang. The protagonist discovers they're trapped in a virtual world called Mobius, run by the Vocaloid idol goddess Mew, who wants to make a utopia where everyone in the real world can escape their problems. Here, people live idealized, fantasized lives in a never-ending high school loop, regardless of who they were in the real world. Mew's intentions are pure. She just wants to provide perfect lives for people, but isn't really able to understand them fully, thanks to her being an AI. Her fanatics have become tainted by delusions, becoming monsters known as Digiheads, which serve as the enemies you fight in the game. The few students who have discovered the truth about Mobius form a go-home club, real on the nose there, Tadashi, to find a way to return to the real world, and invites the protagonist to join them. Thanks to Aria, a goddess that created Mobius with Mew, the group gradually awakens to a special transformation called the Catharsis Effect to combat the dangerous Digiheads, defeat the musicians that control the world, and escape Mobius. The gameplay of Caligula is broken into 3 main systems: dungeon exploring, combat, and various social elements. The dungeons are made up of locations spread throughout the city, tying into the themes of supernatural realism the game has going for it. At any point while exploring these areas, you can attack or be attacked by Digiheads, tearing apart the fake reality and revealing a virtual arena. This is one of the improvements over the original, where battles would just take place at any spot you found enemies on the map. Encounters would often feel too claustrophobic thanks to how narrow the hallways could be. So not only does it look great, there are practical benefits too. The battle UI, along with the rest of the game's UI, was also overhauled to make things look a lot less cluttered. It also provides a more dynamic camera during fights, so you can better see what's going on. It's hard to imagine they were ever the same game, honestly, now that things look so clean. The battle system is often cited as Caligula's best and most unique feature, and Overdose tweaks the balance and offers a smoother experience over the original, for better or for worse. The main gimmick is that after selecting a move, you're shown a simulation of how the attack will play out if it lands, allowing you to plan your attack chains around what actions serve as the best response to the enemy. Countering, juggling, risk management, shield breaking, buffing, comboing, and more come to play, and all work pretty well. This version also adds overdose skills, which let characters do insane damage once their meter fills up. Fights start off kinda limited, but your options really open up once you gain access to a full party. It's also one of those games where your health and SP are replenished at the end of every fight, so you never have to worry about progression coming to a halt in the middle of a dungeon. The improved performance makes things move much faster, and balance tweaks keeps fights from being unfairly difficult like they were before. The problem with this, though, is that their solution makes these encounters way too easy, at least on normal difficulty. I was able to beat the first 2 bosses in a single turn, and most fights can be cheesed by setting your party members to auto and just spamming the default attack. I would recommend playing on hard for the people looking to get the most value out of the combat system, because its full potential just isn't exactly realized on normal. It's a genuinely great combat system, it's just a shame that the adjustments weren't entirely thought out. Another unfortunate aspect of the gameplay is how the dungeons and certain aspects of the social mode weren't really improved. Dungeons tend to overstay their welcome, which is only made worse by the overuse of textures and how Caligula handles its dungeon music. Every dungeon looks samey and are generally just mazes of hallways with slight variations. To the game's credit, it does this neat thing where the dungeon music is just instrumental tracks, and then the lyrics kick in every time you start a fight. The soundtrack is incredible, and each dungeon has a unique song, but considering how long they tend to drag on, you might find yourself getting a little sick of hearing them. The causality link system, where you can befriend and recruit over 500 residents of Mobius, is another thing that's always baffled me. It remains a pointless mechanic, so I'll be brief. Befriending these people can unlock passive skills to improve your characters, but the game is so easy now that doing them is honestly just a waste of time. And recruiting them is pointless as well because the main party are always so much better in battles. Then again, the more important social mechanic is the character bonding episodes with both the Go Home Club and the musicians. If you've played any high school-centric RPG in the last decade, then you know what to expect. As you advance through the story, the characters will slowly open up to the protagonist. It helps a lot, considering how abrasive so many of them come off as in the main scenario. I think the game's plot is adequate, but the fact that the characters are so flawed is what really kept me going. To me, it was the major draw, given that it's rare to see trauma explored to this degree in most games. But hey, you're probably saying, well sure Cullen, it may affect your Caligula, but what exactly overs the dose? Besides the previously mentioned combat changes, they've added a decent amount of new content. A female protagonist has been added, and choosing her actually changes up the dialogue throughout the game's story. Another neat addition is the musician route, where the main character takes on the persona of the mysterious Lucid and sides with the villains. This can actually be played concurrently to the Go Home Club route, and provide some much needed characterization to the villains that the original lacked. I would recommend doing these parts as much as possible, even if at first it doesn't seem like there's any good reason to betray the Go Home Club. Including the new dungeons and this route, Overdose nearly doubles the length of the original scenario. It's impressive how well implemented the new content is. Even if I hadn't played the original on Vita, I wouldn't have been able to tell that the copious amounts of story additions were added after the fact. Now, presentation is still a bit of a mixed bag, but I guess as an overall improvement, the new UI looks great and the 3D models do look better, but are still a little ugly compared to the stunningly beautiful character art that they're based on. It doesn't help that the Switch version's resolution is pretty subpar, topping off at 720p docked. As for undocked, well, it's not good. The resolution gets incredibly blurry, but I can say it looks better and runs smoother than the Vita version, at the very least. If resolution or higher frame rate is important to you, then I would recommend grabbing it on PS4 or PC. It's an okay port, I just wish the game didn't look so blurry undocked, and as of the time recording, I have no idea if this will get addressed in a patch. Besides that, the music is all insanely catchy, and I would find myself getting into battles just to hear those amazing vocals. Overdose makes me feel conflicted, so I guess it's safe to say that it carried on the spirit of Caligula. I wouldn't say the game is entirely bad, but you definitely need patience to get through its many quirks. Again, it's a game with a lot of really cool ideas, and Overdose helps realize these themes better than the original ever did, but some things are still held back by budget limitations. It is an okay port of a good remake of a flawed game. If it looks interesting to you and you can find yourself being able to look past the numerous flaws, then yeah, I think you should check it out. I give the Caligula Effect Overdose a C+.